Here to explain how you can create the team your customers deserve is Corey Mosley, Company Principal with Mosley Automotive. Please give him a warm welcome.
Welcome to Creating the Team That Your Customers Deserve. I'm Corey Mosley, and for the next few minutes, I'm going to share with you some ideas and some strategies that are going to help you better retain and recruit employees. Because that's really the challenge. Yes, we want to hire good people, but once we've done that, we need to make sure that we are retaining them. I'm going to give you some keys and some strategies that's going to help you do that today on this video. So when I think about my story, it's pretty simple. I come from the retail car environment. If you're looking at your screen now, and if you can't guess, I'm the guy in the middle. I've got my little pager there because that's how we knew what line to call and what line to pick up in our sales department to be able to take sales calls. I've got my official golf club shirt on and the official khakis that we were allowed to wear. And I come from a unique perspective because I started in the business so young. I'm probably one of the few people you ever hear that drove a demo to their high school graduation. So my perspective is a couple different directions. Number one is a perspective of what it's like to be young in the auto industry and work for managers that are very senior. And some of the challenges that, as I refer to, the old school environment versus the new school environment. Why people leave, why people disconnect, and some of the management strategies that I will encourage you to rethink and re-engage at the conclusion of this video. Now, I want to start with you by talking about a couple different reasons as to why people actually will leave an organization. They leave for several reasons. Number one, there's no growth plan. And it's very tough. You may be watching this video and you may be in a single point store. And you say to yourself, well, Corey, I have 9 salespeople. I have 2 managers. There's 1 general manager, or I'm the owner and general manager. So when someone comes to work in my organization, even on the sales side or the 2 or 3 service writers you might have, chances are there isn't really a path like a big corporation or a public group or another industry like enterprise rental car, where you can be washing cars today and in 6 weeks you could be in the supervisor managers program. But what I would encourage you to think about is how you can create tiers, how you can create scenarios inside your organization to have junior people, to have senior people, and to have compensation plan and benefits that connect the dots with those different tiers. So it will give you an opportunity to work with people and give them a plan moving forward. The other thing to consider is there's no training plan. Now, there's 2 ways to look at this. Number one, there is no training plan, and let me qualify that. Putting the new hire with Al and letting him shadow him for the week is not what I call the training plan. Because here's what Al does. Al takes Sam, the new hire, under his wing. And by under his wing, I mean he starts to talk to him about the way he does it, which is not the way the store might want it done. So it becomes, hey, I'm going to show you the shortcuts. I'm going to show you my way. So what you think is training is you're really creating another employee with potentially the same bad habits as the person that you've tasked to shadow. Here's the other thing we do with training. We train, but now what's the age of the information? I'll come to your store and I'll look at your posters that are lined up to the left and the right of all the quotes and the training quotes and the strategies, and then I go over to it and I look on the wall at the copyright date. And the copyright date says 1978. See, the problem sometimes with the information age is the age of the information itself. Also, the 800-pound gorilla in the room, work hours. It's something that we're going to have to address as an industry. Now, there are plenty of retail organizations that have great people that work there and have been able to crack the code on work hours. See, there's a lot of things that you consider right now to be sacred cows, to be things that are untouchable in your store. We look at that as hours. Right now, I look at the date and I say, okay, it's the end of the month. Now, we know what that means in the retail environment, right? Everybody must work. Everybody's working bell to bell, open to open, key to key, whatever particular dialect or language you use in your market. Yet, I visit stores all over the country, and I've been in several stores at the end of the month when they're not busy. Yet, everybody is staffed to be there. People are deferring their days off. People can't make dinners. They can't make soccer games. They can't be home with their families because the rule has always been, you got to be there every day, all day, at the end of the month. I remember an employee working for me when I was with the Lexus dealership. And she was making $1,900 a week selling cars. 22, fresh out of college, great income that anybody would be interested in. So when she came to me to quit, I was pretty baffled. But her statement was, I can't work every Saturday. My friends, they're at the beach, they're doing things. I need lifestyle. And that's a mistake many of us make as we think about millennials coming into the marketplace. We have consideration for income because that's how we were trained. See, what you want to do, typically if you're watching this and you're an owner, a leader, a decision maker, what you'd like to do is you want them to go out and get too much house. You want them to go out and buy too much car. You want them to go out and spend money on things that require them to do what? To have to be at that dealership to work more hours. But see, millennials are going to make decisions over lifestyle, over income. One of my dealers comes to me, he says, Corey, he says, I can't understand why I can't get more millennials to come here and stay here. He plops this 5-page pay plan down. And I start to look at it and thumbing through it, and all of it's about money, gross profit, all of this, all of that. And he says, in 3 years, if somebody really worked hard, they could be making $100,000 here. I can't imagine why they wouldn't want that opportunity. And I said to him, the key to this is you don't understand the millennial. You don't understand lifestyle. They will give up money in exchange for lifestyle. Not that they lack ambition. See, she didn't lack ambition when she quit. It wasn't that she was lazy. She worked hard when she was there. She was great with customers. She didn't lack ambition. She wanted things, but what she did not want to do was give up what she deemed to be her life in exchange for money. Because also, guess what? Her life didn't have the requirements that many of us come into the business with, or go to sell with, or extend or expand our families with. So we're going to have to deal with that 800-pound gorilla in the room if you want to survive, because many of you that may be watching this have life for employees. You have people that have been with you 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. They will retire sooner or later. I watched a guy retire one time when we installed the CRM because he refused to call customers on their birthday. And it sounds crazy when you think about it. So you have people that will be leaving, you need to replace them. And ultimately, here's the theme I want you to consider in all of this, is you don't need people who check in, punch the clock, do just enough, and then go home. That's not how we will survive in our market today. You have to create employees as evangelists. You have to create a culture where people will run out in the middle of traffic for you. That's the barometer. Because all the statistics and all the people who study this, the people smarter than myself, maybe the people smarter than you watching this, here's what they know. They know in the next 5 years, customer experience will drive all decision making. It will no longer be brand loyalty. It will no longer be what your cars can do, because frankly, all of our cars look the same. The next time you travel, go down the Hertz line, go down the Avis line, go down the National Rental Car line, and I want you to look straight down that line and tell me you know what each car is, what each brand is. Hey, Kias right now are starting to look like Audis. I wonder why. Oh, they hired the Audi head designer to come over there and start designing their cars. It really is that simple. For many of you watching this, I could ask you the question, do you have a new facility? Are you under construction? And if none of those two apply, do you have a manufacturer that's heavily suggesting that you go under construction? So what happens? We all end up with the same facilities. Maybe you've stopped serving Sanka at your dealership. And I'll let that sit in for a minute for you, because you know Sanka's terrible coffee. Maybe you've stopped serving Sanka. Maybe you've stepped up. Maybe you're starting to deliver on the customer experience. But the challenge is, every day you're inundated with technology, right? You've got CRM companies calling. You've got social media companies calling. You've got everybody that has my favorite buzzword of 2017, which is game changer. Everybody's going to be a game changer. You're constantly inundated with people who are going to create game changers. The Silicon Valley people, they're out there, they're creating game changers. They're going to disrupt our industry year after year. They try to do this. So you're focused on technology, Facebook, reputation management. What do I need to do? And in the back of this whole deal is the human capital. And that's what I want you to continue to hone on, the human capital aspects of this. So work hours is going to be key. Also, there's no real challenge. Ultimately, when you think about our business, with all the complexity, and you'd probably agree watching this, that it's harder to sell a car than it was 5 years ago. But with all this complexity, at the end of the day, the job is really more monotonous than it is complicated. I like to think of our business as the 1980s song from Janet Jackson. And that song was called, "What Have You Done For Me Lately?" So here's what happens. You get to the end of your month. Your month ends, and then what you do is you go to your chipboard, you take the chips off, you go to your slide board, you remove the slides, you go, you spray your stuff, and you wax it all off, and you start all over again. And the monotony again. So what happens is people get disconnected because they don't have a continued challenge. Just hiring an employee and trying to hire a good employee is not the completion of the task. There's just as much a responsibility to make sure your people are engaged as it is to make sure that your customers are satisfied. Okay, also, why they leave. They're not given an input opportunity. They're not given an opportunity to share their ideas. Some of the best ideas that you have right now are within people inside your organization. Your porter may have a great idea on streamlining your processes, enhancing the customer experiences, moving a customer through your service lane a lot faster. But typically, and for most of you, you won't consider to have that conversation with the porter or the receptionist or someone that might have an entry-level position in your store, because you may believe they don't have the great ideas. I might work with a store and have them have a conversation and say, man, that was a phenomenal idea. And somebody might come up to me and say, Corey, I don't want to take any of your thunder away, but I had that idea, but nobody would listen to me. You need evangelists moving forward. And involvement creates evangelism. All right. Dealership values and mission are not clear. What are the values? What do you stand for? What is the mission? I go back to millennials. They're cause-driven. So I understand we might not be curing cancer in our dealerships. However, we do serve a purpose. What is that purpose? What's that mission for you? What does the organization stand for? Do your people know? I often have a saying, I says, do your customers and do your salespeople and do the organization, do the people who work for your organization, do they honestly believe that a customer is better off having purchased for you? Can you make that assertion? If you went to your salespeople, if you went to your office staff, if you went to the people in service, and you said, let me ask you a question. Do you honestly believe that customers are better off when they buy cars from us? It might be interesting, the feedback that you get. I know salespeople will come to me all the time, and they pull me aside and they say, Corey, I won't service my car in our service department. They're terrible. That's a problem. You might agree. All right. What are the values? What are the missions? Let's make sure we're clear on that. Next, what are the business practices? Let's assume for the sake of this communication and this video that you are delivering and you are interested in servicing your customers. You're not on the Channel 9 exposés. They're not coming to your store. The Attorney General's not after you. Let's just assume that. For many, though, that may not be the case. So people will leave your organization, of course, if there's a misalignment in the business practices, if they don't agree with those business practices. When I came into the business, I remember, like it was yesterday, having to deliver one of my first cars, one of my first experiences. There was a scratch on the hood of the vehicle. And I remember going in and telling my manager, and to me, this was pretty much a no-brainer, right? Scratch on the car, fix the car before we deliver it. Halt the delivery, fix it, and then deliver the vehicle. Well, no, that's not what his idea was. His idea was, when the customer got there, I was going to walk them around the car, pop the trunk, and walk them past the trunk, walk them inside, close the trunk, and then continue. If they noticed the scratch, I was to scream out, oh my goodness, and then go get him. I didn't work at that dealership very long. There was a misalignment in what I believed my values were and what their values were. Here's the kicker, and here's, as a manager and as an owner potentially watching this video, here's the message though. My belief system was that the owner wouldn't have thought that to be a reasonable thing to do. The owner would have probably been interested in doing it the right way. But it wasn't the owner that got to make that decision. I didn't report to the owner. So that question becomes, what values and mission are your managers in alignment with also? So something additional for you to consider, your business practices, and ultimately why people leave. Let's talk about engagement for a second. So here's what we know. We know a couple things. We know that engaged employees, and this is pretty reasonable, right? Engaged employees work harder, are more loyal, and ultimately are willing to go the extra mile for the organization that they work for. That sounds pretty reasonable, and you say to yourself, yep, makes sense. Here's the challenge for many of you. The challenge is you don't know what bucket your employees are in. And there's three major buckets when it comes to employee engagement that your employees sit in. They sit in one of three. Number one, they sit in the engaged bucket. They sit in the not engaged bucket. And then the worst of the lot is the actively disengaged bucket. Actively disengaged employees are what kill businesses. Now, how do I define that? Because all these people will show up, they'll hang out in the weeds of your organization, they won't do too much to get noticed, they won't do too little to get noticed, they kind of just hang out and get their paycheck. The problem is actively disengaged people, what they will do is they will leave your store and then they'll comment in the marketplace about how much they hate it. They'll clock out and then they'll go on Twitter. They'll clock out and then they'll go on Facebook. And they say, oh, another day at this place. I can't wait till someone put me out of my misery. And they'll post that. And then, on Facebook, for most of us, if you go there, you go to the About section, where do they work? There's where they work. Here's what they do. Now that's out in the marketplace. How engaged are your employees? You need to be able, whether it's 50 employees or 1,800, you need to be able to have an understanding and insight into the engagement level of your employees. What buckets do your employees fall into? Here's the kicker. A lot of times, that sacred cow of yours, that untouchable in the store, that salesperson who can do no wrong, or that manager who you've put 100% faith in, or those people who used to be great but haven't been so great lately, but you haven't paid attention to it, they're the ones that are actively disengaged. They're the ones that are doing the most damage potentially to your business long term. And the funny thing is, here's how this works. One of two things happen. One, you start to see an erosion. You start to see an erosion in customer satisfaction. You start to see an erosion in sales effectiveness. You start to see erosion in sales and profitability overall, and you go looking for other reasons. You say, oh man, it's the manufacturer. They need to put out better product. Oh, it's the manufacturer. We need that stair-step money. Oh, it's the manufacturer. They're not doing good enough advertising. Oh, it's the banks. The banks aren't buying right now. You go looking for all these reasons. Oh, there's a competitor that opened up down the street and he's lying to everybody. You look for all of these reasons. When one of the main keys, the human capital piece, the internal piece, the actively disengaged employee is the one slowly killing the business. What three of those buckets, which one of those buckets is your sales teams, is your management teams, are your service teams, your whole employee base? Which bucket do they fall in? Here's what we know. A guy named Kevin Cruz, he studies this stuff. He's smarter than me on this one, I guess. He said 45% of employees will cite themselves as being satisfied at work or with their job, yet only 29% would consider themselves engaged. How does that work for you? Now, that's on a global workforce scale. So you have to imagine we have a tighter grouping inside the auto industry. So 45% say they're satisfied. So what that means is the other group, the other 55%, they fall in that possible not engaged or actively disengaged category. 29% say they're engaged. What's happening with the other ones? And incrementally, that kills your business. One salesperson blows one extra customer out a month. One service writer loses one additional RO a month. It compounds, it adds up, and it equals a lot of money. Incentives don't get hit. Bonuses don't get hit. Awards aren't given. All of these things start to happen along the process. That's why engagement and testing and following through on that engagement is going to be so important, and we're going to give you some examples of that. Vanderbilt University, they're also pretty smart. They've studied some stuff here. They've put some algorithms and percentages to things that on the surface are pretty basic for us. They say that basically 1% of internal service climate, which means attitude and approach to employee satisfaction, 1% of that equals 2% in revenue growth. Pretty simple. We'd agree with that, right? The better your employees take care of your customers, the more opportunity you have for profitability. Now, how do we execute on that? Well, you can't execute on that if you don't have a pulse. That's the key. Pulse, an ongoing heartbeat of the engagement level of your staff and of your team. How do we measure it currently? So we look at current engagement metrics in a couple ways. Number one, we talk about the exit interview. Many of you do exit interviews, which again, most aren't done right, and sometimes the value is so diminished because you're dealing with people who are leaving for a variety of reasons. Sometimes they'll tell you the real reason, sometimes they won't. What if the real reason was the manager that has been there for 30 years that you refuse to fire? What's the point of having a conversation? So they don't. And someone leaving your organization, especially someone with talent that you wanted to stay, once they tell you the truth about that, how much do you process it anyway? Hey, they're leaving. What does it really matter? But we look at the exit interview. The other thing we look at is we might look at management's input to HR, or if there's a two-way communication there. Also, surveys. If you're not doing surveys, you can do them almost for free, and you can do them anonymously. That will be key. We spend so much time reactive. Many of the situations that you deal with in your dealership right now, right or wrong, not into the camera, not into the computer, are driven by being reactive. A situation happens, something takes place, a customer issue, a compliance issue, something changes, something that wasn't on the docket for the day and now has to take your attention. Instead of being proactive, surveying and actively contacting and getting that employee feedback on an ongoing basis, quarterly, monthly, is very powerful in setting the tone. Because what we're looking for is trends. And the quicker we can find the trend, the quicker we can make those adjustments. So those are a couple things to consider in terms of how we typically engage now. So one of the things I'm encouraging you to do is rethink. Many of you with your handbooks, your policies, and your benefits offering, the only thing that you change every year is the copyright at the bottom. It becomes the 2017 handbook instead of the 2016, the 2017 package instead of the 2016 package. We never reevaluate it. Here's the question I pose to you, and this is pretty easy for me. If you agree that our customers demand more from us, if you agree that it's tougher to sell a car or even get a new service customer so they don't defect to Jiffy Lube or a third party, if you agree that it's tougher to do that, and if you agree the customer has different education, different wants, different needs, and demands a different level of attention, how can we now not make the same assertion about our employees? So when I say toss the employee handbook, I say it from a level of reevaluating and rethinking. I'm encouraging you to do things like have stay interviews. We do exit interviews, but stay interviews. Here's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in every quarter understanding why my employees continue to work for me. If it's just a paycheck, fine, but I need to know that, and now I need to know a trend. Wouldn't it be great to know 80% of your employees only stay there because you pay them? That might give you an indication that you've got a lot of work to do if you want to create evangelists. If you don't agree with the idea of evangelism, if you don't see the benefits and understand the power, look at the social marketplace, look at some of our political climate, look at some of these other areas where the power of evangelism is really significant. But I want you to have a stay interview. That allows you to pay attention. That allows you to learn and gain insight on an ongoing basis as to why someone continues to work. You can take the best of that information and strengthen it. You can take the worst of that information and fix it. That's a proactive strategy versus a reactive strategy, versus being left with 6 salespeople who all quit because they hated the manager and nobody had the gumption, or you didn't have the culture that allowed them to address the issue. The other thing is I would not be making more hires, and I would not be making another hire inside your organization without analyzing the social networks and the social media networks of my potential hires. Many of you watching this video will agree you've met a lot of people, you've probably hired a lot of people, and you've met some people who interview so great. They do such a great job on the interview, and then my question would be, how many of them become disasters after they actually get in? See, nowadays we put our whole lives online, so the stupidity and possible problems you will have will be found in people's daily lives and in their daily posting. That's the unique thing about where we are today. They'll tell you they'll tell you the story. You just have to go and look for it. Because here's the other thing you'd probably agree with me on. Would you agree with me that it's much harder to fire somebody than it was many, many years ago? Old school car business, I don't like you anymore. I don't like your face. I don't like your attitude. I don't like you didn't sell enough cars. Get out. That's the end of the conversation. Now we got to build files on people. You need the pink sheet. You need the first warning, the second warning, the third warning, escalate it to another manager. You have to deal with somebody who sucks for 6 months just to get them terminated. So that makes it so much more important to make better hiring decisions. And I wouldn't hire another person without considering their social media and reviewing that as part of my hiring process. So, when I talk about the idea of reimagining your benefits package, here's what I'm talking about. Number one, look at merit-based scheduling. There's opportunities to use that as a reward factor to be able to give people more control. People who need to work and know they need to work can work. There's people who are professionals and are sales professionals and are true experts that can handle the responsibility of knowing when they need to be the work and can understand their own parameters. Merit-based scheduling, number one. Number two, wellness initiatives. For many of us right now, here's what the healthcare profession knows. They know that it's better to spend dollars on preventative care than it is a triple bypass. So it costs less to pay for your vitamins and your wellness exams than it does to give you a triple bypass. So what they're making available is the opportunity for you to invest in wellness programs in your store, which come at nominal costs, but have huge benefits because they allow you to get cost reductions in your benefits package with your insurance providers also. So it's really an opportunity I think you should be looking at because you put people on the path to better. And that also results in saving you money in most instances. Also, employee incentives. You can join a gym now for $9.95 a month. So you can make it very inexpensive to offer that as a wellness initiative, to offer local gym memberships as part of your employee package. And package is going to be key. We do everything in packages. We do good, better, best. We do platinum, silver, gold. We order at the drive-thru by 1, 2, or 3. So you want to reimagine the whole package. So now someone can look at that and go, we do this, 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 and this. Wow. This is potentially a great place to work. Versus, Corey, what do they want? I pay them on time. We got to go a step further than that. Also, I know why we did this, but we got to get back to doing it. There was a time when you constantly had employee outings, you had sponsored things, you had things that were happening to build teams. Because we use the word team, service team, sales team, but then we all pit them against each other for the whole month. We go, we are a sales team, we're going to win together. John, your sales suck this month. This is our number one guy. You guys need to go out there and fight it out and see who's going to be number one. Go team. So we have to get back to doing some of the things that we used to do. One of those things was the social outing, the aspects of team building. Now, we used to do that, but here's what happened. 2008 happened. 2009 happened. Things got tight. Things got tough. We canceled the Christmas parties. We canceled some of these events. Then what happened? Business came back. And then we said, you know what? Why don't I just keep saving that money? And we never brought it back. A friend of mine, her husband works at Goldman Sachs. Now, when I say Goldman Sachs, most of you think, okay, he's some high-powered banker making millions of dollars on Wall Street. No, he works in the mailroom. And while that's a perfectly good job to have, here's the key. That couple looks forward to that Christmas party every year because it's an opportunity for them to dress up, an opportunity for them to be amongst those corporate executives, to be one with everybody. They send black cars to pick them up, and it's a whole to-do, and they look forward to it every single year. To the Goldman Sachs executives, it's just another party. To that man who works in that mailroom, for his wife to be there, for them to be dressed up, it's the event of the year for them. There are little things inside your organization that may not mean major things to you, but will be huge for some of your employees. Also, social causes. For most of you as owners, you invest and you do plenty for your communities, but most of you invest only in the things that matter to you. So you sponsor the Little League, you sponsor the Susan G. Komen Cancer Walk, you do that. I encourage you to add as part of your benefits package an opportunity to care and take interest in the causes of your employees. Maybe this month what you're going to do is a little something different. Hey, we're going to go to Jim and we say, Jim, I know you're a big proponent of St. Jude's. You might have lost somebody. We're going to allocate X amount of dollars on your behalf and in your name for that organization. See, you need to build evangelists. To build evangelists, you have to do more than just pay. All right, finally on this, employee amenities. I'm going to show you a picture in a little bit that will illustrate this, but what I don't understand is we want 110% of our employees. We want people treated like guests in our home. We have all of these, everybody's going to be the Ritz-Carlton, right? We want to deliver that experience. But the challenge is we create these great lounges and this great environment for our customers, and then we send our employees into the office with the broken microwave, and nobody can find a cup. Nobody can find a packet of sugar. The coffee machine, it's some old bun coffee machine that's all burnt and nobody even knows how to make the coffee half the time. And we say, go team. And we say, go out there and treat our customers. Right now, you've got people in your dealership who resent the customers in your customer lounge because they walk past them in the Starbucks machine and they got to walk into the employee lounge, as you may call it. It's the one, the one that's got all the chairs that nobody wanted from all the other parts of the dealership. So all the chairs are different and all the tables are different and one's got something propped up under it to make it even. But we want 110%. You need to create evangelists. Coaching. Your managers, your leaders in the store have to start to think like coaches. Here's the problem with coaching. Is it's assumed because you carry the title of manager that makes you a coach. People train for years to be coaches. People get certification. They go to school. They learn techniques, actual techniques to work to make them an effective coach. Coaching is not criticism. See, we'll hold a meeting. We'll say, hey, sales are down. You guys need to step up. I need 10 more appointments in here. Somebody's going to get fired in here. And we call that coaching. Employees need coaching. They want coaching. Here's what we know. 95% of employees surveyed state that coaching is important to the performance review. Yet only 32% will state that their managers are actually effective at it. Our business is very interesting nonetheless. Our business is one of the only businesses where once you carry the title of manager, you get to keep it forever. There's no recertification. It's not like getting your driver's license or your passport renewed where you have to test out to be a manager. If somebody gives you the opportunity, you get it forever. Many of you will go hire looking for a new manager and not consider a quality salesperson because you don't use personality testing. You don't use assessments. You don't use these kind of things to look at the touch points that can make a great manager, that could take a salesperson and make him a great manager. We go, oh, if the resume doesn't say manager on it already, I'm not going to look at them. And then you go hire yourself a manager and you turn the keys over to them. And we don't know if they know how to manage, if they know how to coach. Being a manager, obviously, is more than being able to TO a deal or pencil a deal or know how to work on a vehicle and service. Coaching is also important. And I'm challenging you to invest in your teams as it relates to coaching. Dealer calls me up. He says, Corey, we're going to be like the Ritz-Carlton because that's what everybody wants to be. We're going to be like the Ritz-Carlton. I want my people to, if a customer asks where the bathroom is, I don't want them to point. I want them to say, follow me. He says, but I'm having a problem getting my general sales manager to really engage on that. So I said, well, let me ask you a question. I said, humor me for a moment. He said, sure. I said, did the meeting go something like this? You called the meeting. He said, yes. I said, your GSM and your management team were in a meeting. He said, yes. I said, you said, we're going to be more like the Ritz-Carlton. He said, yes. You gave the example of the bathroom. He said, yes. And then you ended the meeting. He said, how'd you know that? Because that's how the meetings go. Steve Jobs, he's quoted on many occasions. One of his favorite quotes that I like to repeat is the idea that you cannot mandate productivity. It is an organization's job to equip its team with the tools that they need to be successful. You cannot have a meeting, give an order, and expect that order to be followed with people who may or may not have the competency to do it yet. See, they needed training. A guy comes to me, he's telling me about steak. I love a good steak. He says, I had a great steak. He says, I had a steak that was cooked to perfection. And I'm like, wow, I got to know about this place. I said, well, where'd you go? He said, I went to Applebee's. And I said to myself, I mean, Applebee's great if you like it. But for most of us, we wouldn't consider Applebee's the greatest place that we can go to get a steak. Probably not the most memorable place to go to get a steak. And the analogy I used with him was, you can't expect your managers or your salespeople to instantly have Ritz-Carlton thinking, Morton Steakhouse thinking, Ruth's Chris Steakhouse thinking, if their thinking is Applebee's. You have a responsibility to train on that curve. And coaching is no different. Coaching is a skill, not a rite of passage as a manager. All right. I'm asking you to give perks with a purpose. So when I talk about the idea of giving perks, these wellness initiatives, all these things have a purpose for you. If you gave out gym memberships and made those available, and 60% of your employees took advantage of it, started going, they got healthier, that means people are out less for sick time. That means your opportunities for a reduction in your healthcare costs can go down. There's credits and tax credits available for you and different factors that can contribute to that. So by putting out a better package that's more attractive than your competitors, both inside the industry and out, you can serve a dual purpose. You're giving something, but you're also getting something as well. Also, you got to be honest with inexperienced hires. Many people defect away from the dealership because they come in and are never told really what's going to happen in the job. You hire somebody from your internet department, your BDC department, and you don't tell them you want them to make 60 calls a day, and nobody's going to answer the phone, and most of those people aren't going to call you back right away, and you're going to have to chase them for 60 days, 90 days, 180 days. You don't tell them that. They're going to be gone really fast. You don't set the expectation of what's going to happen. You've got to tell new people coming to your organization, really, what's the real deal? What can they expect? How long can they expect it? We've got to put in that kind of time to get the results. My plan for you when it comes to new hire engagement, a couple steps. Why is it that I can go to the Hampton Inn and I can walk in and have a letter for me? I don't care if it's a form letter. It's got my name on it, and they're welcoming me to the hotel. They're telling me some things about the hotel. Why wouldn't I apply that to a new hire? Why shouldn't a new hire get a new hire packet or a welcome letter bringing them in to the dealership? Why do new people come to the dealership and nobody knows that they've even been hired? Oh, what are you here for? Oh, all right, well, go sit in the waiting lounge and, somebody will be with you. Welcome. What's the training agenda? What are you actually going to do? How are they prepared for that? Or is it just fly by the seat of the pants? We're going to put you with Al. Welcome. Why don't you announce new hires to the whole dealership? I've been in a store where a general manager, who was not hired by the owner, he was hired by another person in management, was in the store assuming his role of general manager. The owner came in, started walking around the place. The GM's like, whoa, can I help you, sir? And the guy's like, I'm the owner. You had a highly paid individual, a general manager, someone who has signing authority, management ability, the ability to hire, fire, lead, set the tone, and he doesn't even know the actual person he works for. Saw him in front of him, had no idea who he was. So in that instance, if that's how that owner engages with his general managers, what could he possibly be doing with the porter or the receptionist or the accounts receivable clerk or all of the people that are required to make it all work? I challenge you to start to think about some sacred cows in your organization, some things that you've been hands off about, where now is the opportunity for you to re-engage in that process. I encourage you to think about things like a personal meeting with all new hires, with the owner or the executive team, a lunch and learn with an owner. You have to eat anyway. The impression you would put on the new entry-level receptionist that came into your dealership by spending 30 minutes at Panera Bread with them would be significant to creating an evangelist relationship. I'm not famous. I think I am on a key-to-key basis, but when I speak to people, I always ask them to raise their hand if they've ever heard me before, and less than half of the room goes up. So they always remind me I'm not as famous as I think, but I find it amazing when people will come over to me and they want a picture, they want an Instagram with me, and it's the greatest thing for them. And to me, I'm like, great. But it's so significant to them. Who inside your organization that spending an extra 30 minutes to get to know that you don't know now as a leader, as a decision maker, as an owner inside your organization? Who could you impact? Who's one person today that you can make an evangelist for your organization? Finally, ask for feedback. Get the feedback. How's our new hire process? How's it going for you? How's the first 30 days been? How are things working? Get that feedback. What could we do differently in our onboarding process? And it doesn't matter to me if you're watching this as a dealer group or a publicly traded company. We all have opportunities to engage. And if you are a single point store watching, don't think that this is all for big organizations. These are strategies that can have a huge impact. They don't carry a lot of cost. It doesn't cost you that much to take a new employee to lunch. I want you to start thinking in terms of creating a 3-month engagement strategy instead of a 3-month probation period. We hire everybody, and what's one of the first things we tell them? For the first 90 days, it's in your handbook too, right? For the first 90 days, you're on probation. We can fire you by law for any reason that we deem necessary. Welcome. That's what we do. What if you presented with them instead of the 90-day probation period? What if you presented them with the 90-day engagement strategy? I want to share with you all the things over the next 90 days we are prepared to do for you to make sure that you are successful and as successful as possible to succeed at this job. What would the impact be? What I don't understand is why first impressions only matter when it comes to meeting potential customers. First impressions on a meet and greet, first impressions on a telephone, first impressions in the service drive, first impressions on the internet. We believe in first impressions when it comes to handling our customer, but we don't believe as employers in first impressions when it comes to onboarding new employees. I challenge you to rethink that strategy. All right, I want to share with you a couple things. Number one, I want to talk about the idea of radical candor, this thing I call radical candor. That is a culture change inside your organization. I want you to make an ongoing process of feedback a habit. See, what happens is you have meetings or you have corrective conversations with employees, but you only do them during corrective periods. So something goes wrong, then you bring the person in and you say, Tom, Tim, or Sally, this is wrong. You've messed up. Don't do it again. And then they go away. Now you create this basis, this contention, that every time you want to communicate, every time you actually want to talk, it's based around the idea that something is wrong. However, if you made ongoing conversation, ongoing candor, ongoing conversation with your teams part of your culture, then you're always going to have good things to say, and you're always going to be able to coach on things that need to improve. It won't be dramatic because it will be expected if you're communicating on a regular basis. Also, you need to know the nevers. And what I mean by that simply is you need to create a baseline for the things that ultimately won't be acceptable anymore to you in the future. So what are the things that you won't tolerate across the board? There's no sacred cows anymore. There's nobody that's going to escape it. They have to be able to all be in alignment moving forward. Next is give actionable advice. So I'm challenging you to give actionable advice to your employees. Don't just tell them what's wrong. Tell them what steps they can take to fix it. Next, have a go-to question. My go-to question is always, is there anything that I could be doing to help you do your job more effectively? Is there any tool, any resource? Is there anything that you don't have that I can be doing to help you do your job more effectively? That's my go-to question. That's going to be an easy way for you to engage in a conversation to get better and move forward. Don't be afraid. Reward criticism. I need to know what's wrong with my organization because sometimes you can't see the picture when you're in the frame. Also, be slow to disagree. See, we're so high A personality. We're so alpha male, alpha female, it doesn't matter. We're so highly kind of engaged in black and white, yes and no. Because you're going to get people, once you open the floodgates to candor and ongoing communication, you're going to get some people that are going to bring some ridiculous ideas to you. Somebody's going to come to you and say, oh, you know what? I think we should have Chick-fil-A paid for by the dealership every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. You're going to get people who are going to bring those ideas to you. But here's what's key. You have to be slow to disagree. You have to process that information. Because what your inclination would be to go is, are you insane? Get out of here. That will not promote ongoing candor. What that will promote is an environment where people will not talk to you, will not engage you, because they'll assume no matter what the idea, you'll just shoot it down. So in that scenario, you might say something like, well, I certainly appreciate you bringing this feedback here. Certainly going to have to look at the cost involved in that, but I'm going to get back to you. That's an opportunity to not shoot anybody down, but get where you need to go. Here's a couple things we know. We surveyed some of the local universities based on where we live, and we wanted to know what are the top 4 reasons someone would not work in the auto industry. Here's what we learned. 39% cited work hours, 27% said inconsistent income, 15% said limited advancement, 19% said social stigma. That big one is still work hours. You want millennials to stay, you're going to have to change the lifestyle expectations. Old school thinking was no news equaled good news. If your manager wasn't talking to you back in the old school days, if he said nothing, the GM wasn't talking to you, and the owner wasn't talking to you, you weren't communicating, that meant everything was great. Onboard a bunch of millennials in your organization and say nothing to them and see how long they last. They require constant feedback. No news is bad news. I challenge you to focus on mentorship, not management. I challenge you to take a relook at your customer facilities because understanding that the same rules and same opportunities and the same outcomes, the same reason you invested in making things better for your customer will give you the opportunity to make it better for your employees. The key here is very simple. You've got some decisions to make, and I want to create that thought process for you. The culture will start with you. The path forward will start with you. And I'll leave you with this final quote. Those who hate change will hate irrelevance a lot more. So now's the time to take control of your employee retention and your human capital. Thank you.